long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. How far away is it? Well, hang on. What did the poster of ET say? How many millions of miles away is the Star Wars universe? Because it's the Andromeda Galaxy, right? Isn't that what all the nerds figured out like 30 years ago when that movie came out?
Yeah, well, what happened was
What happened at first was that's a
the
fresh
ET
Prince
poster
That's a
lists
fresh Prince of Bel-Air reference for you kids, by the way.
the ET poster lists a certain number of light years that ET had come from, and then it turned out that was the exact number of light years that the Andromeda Galaxy was away from us, and so we were like, okay, well, cool, then he's from the Andromeda Galaxy, that makes sense. Then what fucking happened was George Lucas put ETs in the Galactic Senate. It's like, oh shit.
They're just fucking sitting there going, and fucking Palpatine, the Emperor, is just like, yes, that is a rational thing that I'm coherently understanding and that I'm considering in my political opinion.
Damn it! I think I found the right.
I think that's really fucked.
I think I found the right poster, but it's in Japanese. Damn it.
Well, I mean, that's all the best posters are. Except for the poster that inspired this podcast, The Demons from Outer Space, which is the podcast that is happening in the galaxy right here, right at home. The home galaxy, the home front.
The Milky Way, Bill.
The Milky Way. Not too far away, right in New York. And Tennessee. So if you're close to New York or Tennessee, depending on where you are on this planet or any other, I don't know where you are. I can't get those readings if you're off planet. There could be some alien picking up these transmissions, just like these fucking dumbasses.
Right now in the galaxy that you're currently occupying, so here basically is what I'm saying.
Yes, this is the Demons from Outer Space was the point of all that. I apologize. And joining me, of course, I have Dylan McCandless, aka Super DM64.
Yes, I'm here. If I wasn't here, there wouldn't be a show because that would just be Bill rambling. So,
yeah, because I've never done that before. Dylan, all the Star Wars preamble, all the rambling was for a reason, though, and we are talking about Star Wars tonight. This is kind of the first episode we've ever done that we've devoted to Star Wars on this show. We've done a couple Star Wars episodes on SOS. And we've talked about Star Wars a lot on this show, but we've never done a whole episode where we've just talked about Star Wars. But that's what we're doing tonight. In what capacity, though, D?
Aside from all the ET talk, yes, tonight we are going to be reviewing the 2003 Clone Wars cartoon micro-series, actually, put out by the wonderful animator Genndy Tartakovsky, who is a personal favorite of mine. Bill, I think I've raved before on recordings about how much I love this series. What's sort of your exposure to this? Do you remember it when it came on?
Yeah, I saw it when I was a kid. I saw Attack of the Clones in theaters, so this hit all the right buttons for me. I caught it whenever I could. I would watch it in the morning before I could go to school. Watch it whenever I could at night. They even played it. I think they even played it on fucking Boomerang after it had initially aired. Like they started to play it sporadically on Boomerang, like early in the morning or late at night or whatever, or in the afternoon.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is each episode's only like 5 minutes long at first, so like they could just like slip it in commercial breaks sometimes if they wanted to. Like,
right, exactly. And I think that's how I saw a lot of it, is that they would literally just drop it into the middle of another cartoon. Like I would be watching like Pokemon or I don't know. I literally do not remember what I could have possibly been watching on Cartoon Network at the same time as that show was on. I don't remember. I don't know, maybe fucking Ninja Turtles or something. I don't know. And then they would put one of those on. The one I remember most distinctly was the episode. This would have been later though, because this is one closer to Revenge of the Sith, where Anakin's hair's all long when they're on the ice planet, and one of the troopers like walks up to a bush and it like scurries, and then an animal comes out, and then Anakin turns and goes, "I don't think it's lethal, trooper." I remember that very distinctly from when I was a kid. And then Anakin like kills the giant monster with his lightsaber.
Yeah.
But this didn't just air in 2003. It ran to 2005, didn't it? Like they just released smaller episodes up until then.
Yeah.
And
it's referred to as the 2003 series because it began in 2003. The first season was in 2003, I'm pretty sure, and then the second season was like maybe later half of 2004, maybe, I don't remember. But yeah, it was what we had in between the second movie and the third movie. You know, if you were like me and didn't really have access to a lot of the books and comics and things back then, you had this on TV. And that was your expanded Star Wars, kids.
And there were Star Wars animated series prior. I think there were two droids, and there was also the Ewok Adventures, which there were also two TV live action movies made out of. So Star Wars did not disappear post Return of the Jedi to Phantom Menace.
No. This was sort of supposed to bridge the gap in between the two movies.
But I guess this is the first serious stab at a Star Wars cartoon, though.
Yeah.
A serious canon with characters you recognize that aren't just droids. An attempt at doing Star Wars on TV with animation.
Which I was always like, the Phantom Menace seems so like disconnected and unimportant to the rest of the trilogy, really. Like, couldn't you have just opened with Attack of the Clones and made this like the second live action movie? Like, why make this?
It is so stupid that they start out with Anakin that young. I mean, it just because they're like, oh, you got to be young when you're a Jedi. Luke wasn't.
Well, and you don't need the backstory of them finding him on Tatooine.
No,
you could have just
really stupid.
You could have just opened with him already being a Padawan, and if you want to tell some of that backstory, you can do like a flashback or some exposition or something. You don't have to make a whole movie out of it and then pad out the rest.
They totally fucking dance like they just bizarrely convolute what they say at the beginning of A New Hope, where it's like, I met him when he was a really good pilot, and I was like, hey, you should maybe be a Jedi, and I'll take you under my wing. And then he taught him the ways of the Jedi, and then he turned on him. That was the whole idea. So all you do is you have him fucking fighting for the Republic as a starfighter, maybe as a freighter, because I think Beru and Owen tell Luke that Anakin wasn't a Jedi, but he was a starfreighter. So kind of like Han Solo. So maybe even that, and then you have him be discovered by Obi-Wan and teach him, and obviously Vader comes along later. But obviously that's not what they decided to do, and instead we got this. But this is much closer to this cartoon what I think the prequels were supposed to be. I think that this show is Genndy Tartakovsky going, listen, I know that those movies are shit, but there is a lot of good stuff in them that can tell a cool, coherent story that is indeed very Star Wars if given the proper structure. And I think doing many kind of stories that happen during the Clone Wars in like these mini cartoons that are released kind of weekly or whatever, and then maybe thrown together. I think that that's an awesome way to recount that part of the Star Wars universe, and I think that it works really well here.
At the time, there was this huge what you call it, there was this huge sort of, I guess, campaign. That's not really the word I was looking for, but you'll understand what I mean. From Lucasfilm at the time of like telling the Clone Wars story, like in the expanded universe. So there's all this these comics and books that are coming out at the time that are sort of telling these details about what's going on in the Clone Wars.
All contradicting each other in a million different ways.
Yeah, because this is what was going on currently. So that's what everybody was doing. And I think, if I remember correctly from the special features on the DVD, the Tartakovsky show was originally supposed to be like just animated commercials, basically, and they sort of wound up becoming a series. And so the first season is really just sort of snippets of the war, really. Like there's sort of an overarching story going on with Ventress.
It is just kind of vignettes, though.
Yeah, aside from that one plot that carries throughout, it's pretty much just, oh, Kit Fisto is underwater, and it's like the coolest episode. And like, or oh, here's Mace Windu being badass.
What if we didn't have to worry about budget in a Star Wars war situation at a time when Jedi are still a thing? And I think that this animation style very well serves that. And I think that that's the thing that holds up the best about it.
On the one hand, it's even more outlandish than the movies are. Because
fuck yes. My God. I mean, I think that at some point
you can get away with doing anything. And I think that might turn.
It straddles the line between going too far to the point that it doesn't even look like Star Wars anymore. But I don't think that happens to any great extent that it's even really a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why that might turn some people off of the series, because if you didn't like how outlandish some of the action stuff was in the prequels, it's even worse. Well, worse isn't really the word. It's even more so here. But at the same time,
But I think because of the medium, it matches up better with the original trilogy. Because I mean, we see Luke do some crazy flips and shit with the Force in that. So
yeah,
we know the Jedi are capable of that. It's just a matter of presenting it in a way that doesn't look ridiculous. And because Lord George Lucas is a fucking lazy director, it looked ridiculous.
I mean, we got Count Dooku doing some force levitation in this series, which had only really been seen by Darth Vader that one time on Cloud City. All kinds of neat little stuff like that.
But we get to see people for the first time that are good with the Force, who aren't limited by fucking machinery or aren't burnt up crisps of old men.
Right. Or aren't living in a time when the Jedi Order is no longer a thing, and therefore there's no one to really train you in how to reach like the highest levels of what you can do with the Force.
Everybody with the Force has to hide. This is a time where the Republic is very much so in prominence, and the Jedi Order is very much so in prominence because they're leading the war against the Separatists. So it's a very again, I think it's a good period to use for this kind of story. Also because the prequels have this more cartoony look to them anyway. Like you watch those movies, and because of the CGI and because of the more elaborate background design and everything, it looks more like a comic book or a cartoon or a kind of outlandish, impossible drawn science fiction scape, almost like a matte painting.
Yeah,
and that was done intentionally. Lucas wanted to paint the Republic age as like this golden age of the galaxy.
Yeah, I do kind of wish that after this micro series was over, Tartakovsky could have done something in the Civil War era also, though, because I would have loved to see.
Oh man, that would have been cool.
I would have loved to see his rendition of Darth Vader.
Yeah, I was about to say I would have loved to see him do something with Vader. Maybe just have him hunting some Jedi. That would have been awesome.
I would also love to see some Imperial guards actually get to fight on screen, because like in the old comics, they were like the most elite fighters that the Empire had to offer, and they had all this special training and shit. And in the movies, all they ever do is stand around.
And we get to see kind of their equivalent in this fight. Well, we get to see too. There's Palpatine's blue garbed guards. You know, the ones in like the blue robes, which are pretty much like the precursor to the red ones.
Yeah, that's something. Yeah, that the Republic already had established, and then Palpatine sort of stepped up the program later on. Because by the time you get to Revenge of the Sith, I think there are already some red guards standing around in places.
Yeah, Yoda knocks him over with the Force. But there's also those guards that General Grievous have that are very similar with the kind of lightsaber staffs that can't cut, but they whack really hard with like an electric shock. They definitely get their due in this. Maybe too much. Maybe that scene goes on a little long, but it serves a purpose.
But that fight between them and the Jedi in the second season on Coruscant is like one of the most dynamic action scenes. Like I was watching it today, and every time I watch it, I sort of had forgotten how good it was until I watch it again. And I'm like, Jesus, this is like really good. Like this puts fucking Dragon Ball Super to shame. Like look at that fluidity.
I think this is better animated than Dragon Ball Super is, but this is also, I think it's helped by the budget. I mean, this is a Star Wars thing. At the time it was a canon Star Wars thing. So
it's also helped by the fact that as much as I wish it could have been a full-length series instead of a micro series, it's helped by the fact that it's shorter because they can sort of use that budget to its fullest extent. You know.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I'm hard-pressed to find something to say negatively about this.
Because usually in a cartoon like this, and you even see this with, going back to comparing this to Dragon Ball Super, you even see this in that. Like, usually the best animated sequences are the action sequences, and then the rest of it is, like, super lazy, just people standing around and talking or whatever. In this, most of it is action sequences, but even when it is just people standing around and talking, it's still animated, like, beautifully.
Because as stylized as Dragon Ball Super is, the animation isn't necessarily super stylized. Like, Super doesn't have that, like, crazy over-the-top anime, like, people having giant heads and everything that a lot of anime has. It's a little more reserved.
Yeah.
And this is style. This is a...
There are a few different animators on Super that have vastly different styles, so there is like moments in the show where you can look at like scene to scene, like it just looking kind of different, but nothing like too outrageously different. Um,
This is different though. This is a more kind of it's a style that's not distinctly American, but it's a style that's recognizable as this kind of art deco maybe. I don't know.
yeah.
How do you describe Genndy Tartakovsky's style? Because he's not a creator that I'm deeply familiar with. I know him mostly through you and Andres. I watched Samurai Jack a little bit as a kid. I never really got into it. I was always more of a fan of it as a concept than I was of the actual series. I saw this, of course, loved it as a kid. And then, I think that was pretty much it. And then the most recent thing that I know him from is Hotel Transylvania.
Well, I think this Clone Wars show is certainly his best looking work in terms of 2D animation, in my opinion. Samurai Jack is definitely my favorite thing he ever did. Going back further than that, Bill, you're aware that he did Dexter's Lab, right?
No, I did not know that. I thought that was Craig McCracken.
No, he did Powerpuff Girls.
I thought he did both. Well, okay.
They have similar styles, so it's. I used to make that mistake as well. But no, Tartakovsky did Dexter's Lab. He did Samurai Jack. He did this. He did shit. There's this show about a giant robot that was on Cartoon Network for a while, and it was pretty good, but it got scrapped before.
Is it the one Symbionic Titan that Andres was talking about for a while? Okay, I had that name stored away in my subconscious, and I pulled it out in that moment. I was like, yes, this works.
Yeah, he did that. He did that show, and then more recently he broke into movies with the two Hotel Transylvania flicks. Which, when I saw the first Hotel Transylvania movie, I wound up seeing that in theaters for some strange reason, because I think my family wanted to see it, and I got dragged along. I'm not usually one who goes out for kids movies anymore, but I saw that one in theaters, and the whole time I was sitting there thinking, like, there's something about this art style that looks familiar. Like, it's 3D animated, so it's kind of like it's rounder than what you normally see from Tartakovsky, but it was just like something about the way these characters are like drawn or something like looks familiar. And then you get to the end credits of Hotel Transylvania, and you see directed by Genndy Tartakovsky pop up on the screen, and there's this whole end credit sequence, kind of like what they did with Daredevil, where it's just the different characters, but they're actually drawn in Tartakovsky's like 2D style.
That's awesome.
And I had like a moment in the theater because I had no idea it was him that had done the movie, and I'm sitting there watching like all these characters like drawn in his normal 2D style, and I kind of jizzed myself a little bit. But
wow. Well,
he's great.
I hope you cleaned up after yourself.
He's great. I don't know how would I describe his art style though. He's got sort of a minimalist.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Style.
It's stylized again. That's choice word of the day.
Very cartoony, very kind of boxy, kind of like what they did with Disney's Hercules, but way better than that.
Yeah, it's better than that, definitely. Okay, I've thought of something negative to say. I don't think the dialogue is always great. I think that some of it sounds like George Lucas could have written it for one of his movies.
That might be the intent, though.
Yes, potentially. I think that a lot of the time it does manage to get over that hurdle and be more believable and make the characters feel more real than the movies do.
Because I'll say this right now, I prefer this micro series to the 2008 cartoon. I know there are probably a lot of people out there who would disagree with me on that front. For a long time, I refused to watch the 2008 cartoon, but this past year I finally did watch it, and I liked it, but I still prefer this. And one of the reasons is I think this movie fits in better with the prequels, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Like, whenever I watch the prequels, I always watch this like in between 2 and 3, whereas I could never do that with the 2008 show. One, because it's way too long, but also because there's just this weird disconnect that goes on. The Anakin that's
too much of its own thing.
Yeah, like take Anakin Skywalker for example. In this micro series, for better or worse, he feels like the same character that was in the movies.
Yes, and he's a lot less likable.
Yeah, whereas if you watch the '08 series, I think they tried to redeem the character of Anakin. They tried to make him a much better character, and that's fine.
They tried to Lucify him.
Yeah, that's great. He's great in that show. But it just creates this weird disconnect where it's like, okay, so we went from being like a whiny crybaby in the second movie to being like this awesome hero during the Clone Wars, and then a whiny crybaby again in the third movie. Like, it's weird,
They tried to explain it though, didn't they? Where like something happens at the end of that show that then dovetails him back to that place? Is it because his apprentice leaves him, or?
They kind of do that, yeah, but they do it even better in this show with what happens to him at the end when he's on that planet that I can't remember the name of.
Yes, I think that is a vastly more interesting and better place to leave him off right before Revenge of the Sith. I will agree with you. And I think that the vision that he has in this is more subtle and more interesting than... Because I've seen a bit of the 2008 Clone Wars show. I watched the first couple episodes when it was first on TV because I was like, oh, Star Wars, cool.
The only way to
fell off.
The only way to really watch it is to go and find the list on the internet that tells you what order to watch the episodes in, because it all aired out of order. So it's really weird. Like, you'll watch an episode in season 1, and then all of a sudden you're skipping to season 3 to watch another episode. I don't know why they did it this way, but if you watch them in order... If you watch them in order and actually take the time to move around in your Netflix playlist and watch them the way that they're supposed to be watched instead of this stupid airing order, it's a pretty good show. Like, I wound up liking it. I watched it solely because I wanted to get into Rebels, and I was like, I'm probably going to hate this, and then I can get to Rebels and like that better. But I did wind up liking the 2008 show. And the really interesting thing is, even though the 03 show is confirmed no longer canon, it kind of works with the 08 show. Like, you could take the entirety of the 2008 cartoon and put it inside the time skip that happens in season 2 of this show.
I don't see why not. I mean, they don't cover Anakin becoming a knight in that show. Like, that's already been done.
Yeah, and it pretty much works. Like, there's a few little things that you have to retcon. Like, General Grievous already has the coffee voice in the 08 show.
Oh my god, he is so much cooler than this, than in any other fucking version.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get to that. Believe me. But there are a few little things like that you would have to kind of like retcon in your brain while you're watching it. But personally, that's how my headcanon currently works.
I would be perfectly fine with
season
that.
2 of 03 and then Revenge of the Sith.
I would be perfectly fine with that.
And then that James Luceno book that's technically no longer canon anymore, but fuck that.
Which one?
The Darth Vader one.
Oh, the one that I read, Dark Lord, The Rise of Darth Vader, yeah.
And the Plagueis one. Fuck Disney's canon. I got my own canon. They can fuck off.
I think they'd probably be like, that's fine. We don't care. We have lots of money.
We're like, fuck you, Disney. You piece of shit. Please
I have my headcanon. You have billions of dollars. Fuck you. You're the loser in this situation.
But I have my integrity.
Sure. Let's see how that integrity feeds you.
Not well.
No, not well. I imagine not. You can't be eating You can't be eating that Star Wars headcanon, can you? You can't go into a fucking 7-Eleven and be like, would you like to hear my theory about how all the pre-Disney Star Wars novels works in with the movies that I like? And then you can give me a hot dog because I'm so hungry. I haven't eaten in 2 years because...
It's like a religion, Bill. It has no application in the real world. It just gives me the warm fuzzies.
I know what you mean, man. I can tell the year of a Godzilla just based on the frame of a movie, like and the action figure, and trust me, it's a disgusting but also very like self-affirming feeling.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I can list and their years without even thinking that hard about it. And I can almost do the same thing for James Bond. Like, I can remember the movies. Might take me a while to remember the years, but I can spit it out, damn it.
Yeah, I can do it too. I can do it with Star Wars too. That's impressive, right?
Really?
That's impressive, right?
It will be in 20 years when there's a million of them.
I think it's slightly more impressive now that there's already 8, I think. Not even counting 8. Episode 8, that's not come out yet.
Well, the crazy thing about Star Wars is there's so many ways to list it. You can list it in release order. You can list it in chronological order. Like, it's just a treasure trove of insanity.
Yeah, there's also that There's also that 2008 animated Clone Wars movie that got put out in theaters and apparently is garbage. Have you seen that?
I have. It was on the list of things, because when you're watching the show, at a certain point you just watch the movie, because all that was several episodes of the show that they said, hey, let's put in theaters, because that always works out well.
Is it bad?
It's bad as a movie, but if you look at it as like episodes of the show, it's pretty standard.
Just kind of standard operating procedure for that show, I see.
Yeah, their biggest mistakes was putting it in theaters. Like, I don't know I think it was George Lucas's idea, actually. bastard.
I'm never gonna make another Star Wars movie. People get too mad at me, so I'm just gonna take a bunch of episodes of this cartoon that I think is just kind of fine, and I'm gonna throw it in theaters, and nobody's gonna see it. I mean, dude, a Star Wars movie was in theaters, and I couldn't get anybody to go see it with me. Nobody wanted to go, and I was like, dude, it's a Star Wars movie. Like, you have to see, like, this is a thing that you have to do. It's like, no, I don't. It looks like shit, and I'm like, fuck me. I can't get anybody to go see this thing with me.
That is the only Star Wars movie that had came out during my lifetime that I didn't actually go see at the theater.
Me too. Oh no, that's not true. I didn't see Revenge of the Sith in theaters either, which was crazy. I wanted to so badly.
God, you should have. That was a great theater experience for me. It was everything that I wanted those prequels to be. Finally,
my parents don't care about Star Wars, so they wouldn't take me. And I was only like, I guess I was 9 or 10 when Revenge of the Sith came out. So I couldn't go see it by myself because that one was PG-13.
Yeah, it's pretty dark. It's a pretty dark movie.
Yeah, for sure. I think that was also it. There was an Entertainment Weekly article about that the scene where Anakin gets fucked up and talking about how this still works as a family movie, and if it does. And George Lucas was like, well, I think that you gotta fuck up kids mentally sometimes and let them and let them cry.
Listen, I don't often agree with George Lucas, but yeah.
Sure, I mean, listen, I had no problem with watching a man's arms and limbs be cut off. I mean, you don't even really see anything. I mean, it's all such wonky CGI anyway. I mean, who fucking cares? You know what?
Yeah.
It affected me more so, like, it was more gruesome to me as a kid at that exact age, like maybe even that exact year, when I played Budokai 1 on the PlayStation 2, and you see Goku and Raditz get the the special beam cannon, like, drilled through them, and you see, like, the hole. That fucked me up. I was like, oh my god. Jesus.
Oh yeah, because didn't you actually have that weird thing where you actually got into DBZ through the games?
Yeah, pretty much. I saw a little bit of the show prior to that, but I didn't really get into the universe until I started playing the games.
See, that when I saw that in the game, it really didn't affect me at all because I had already seen it in the show. Like in those, that was back in the day.
No, I mean that was my first exposure to it was through the games. Like I hadn't seen that in the show yet. No.
Those were like the pre-Kai days where like Japan wasn't about like censoring shit. So it was like, yeah, there's gore. Like why wouldn't there be?
Yeah, no. I mean, when I eventually did see it, I mean, I saw the gore. I saw the gore in the show. DBZ Uncut was my jam, man. I fucking loved that shit back in the day.
But we're supposed to be talking about Star Wars.
Yeah,
so
we haven't been talking about that. So yes, I think that there is definitely some attempt to maybe shitify the dialogue and characterizations to line up with the movie. But I also feel like there's more of an attempt to make it feel
I wouldn't say that there's an attempt to shitify things. I would say that there's an attempt to at least make it feel conducive with the movies.
But the characters feel less like real people and more like delusional sociopaths than they might have had this not been a direct tie into those movies.
Especially in season 2, when they actually got to tie in directly to the movie. Like this show is pretty much to Revenge of the Sith what Rogue One is to fucking.
Yes. You're absolutely right, and I think that that's awesome. I think that that's great. It is very Rogue One.
Like you watch this, and it ends literally on the shot that you open Revenge of the Sith with, where you're over Coruscant with all the ships and things.
And I feel like Grievous' Darth Vader-esque scene from Rogue One in this cartoon is better than Vader's scene in Rogue One, but that's live action, so that's got a different stigma, of course.
Well, it's longer, and so you can. The only downside of the Darth Vader scene is that it's so damn short.
Yeah, that's Gareth Edwards for you.
I really want. He wants
you to have blue balls, D. He wants to just kind of massage your dick through your pants, and then he walks away. He's that kind of chick.
I'm not against that, but what I need now is for Disney to come along later and finish the job. You know what I mean? What I really want now, before James Earl Jones gets too old to do the voice.
You want him to put on the gloves and fucking just go, all right, Dylan, it's time. And he just fucking jerks you off.
No, what I was going to say is...
all right, yeah, you want him to use the Force, you're right. Don't choke on your ambitions, Daddy. No, just...
Before James Earl Jones gets too old to do the voice, which, God, we're already getting there. He sounded a little rough in Rogue One, that's all I'm going to say.
I agree.
But before he gets to that point where it's no longer feasible, we got to get a Darth Vader movie, right?
Yes, definitely. Well, what is he going to be doing, though? That's the thing.
And for God's sakes, Put the Emperor in it. I don't care for how long. I need some more Ian McDermott.
That would be nice. I'd like to see them do a Lords of the Sith thing where they're like a buddy cop duo, like they're going around fucking shit up. I'd like to see a movie version of what we did on SOS where they're a stoner duo where the Emperor is the stoner and Darth Vader is just the unwilling unwilling participant in the pot smoking.
Well, you do like a typical Darth Vader story from the comics. You just have a Jedi that survived Order 66 and you have
That's
Darth
everything though. Why can't we see something different?
Well, because it's never been done live action though.
That's true. Yeah, you're right.
Unless you want to do like a live action version and canon of like the Force Unleashed and like find a way to like fix all the canon problems in the story.
Okay, here's what I'd rather see. I'd rather see a Jedi who's been hiding really well, fuck up, try to take out Vader in like a moment of passion, and then that prompts some story or whatever. Like maybe tries to assassinate him.
You know, I had a similar idea once for a fan fiction, and what it was like a Jedi who was like only a youngling during the Order 66, but he managed to like hide during the Temple invasion, and he actually saw Anakin killing the other younglings.
That would be cool.
And then he got away. Anyway, he comes back all these years later, and he doesn't really know that Palpatine is a Sith because nobody really knows that.
No.
So he tries to assassinate Palpatine. That goes about as well as you'd expect. He manages to escape by the skin of his teeth, and then Palpatine sends Vader to hunt him down.
Not even the Jedi that survived Order 66 think that Palpatine is a Sith. They have no idea what to make of Vader. They're just like, what?
Well, remember, that was a thing that Lucino played around with in that Darth Vader book.
Yeah.
The running theory that the Jedi in that book had was that maybe Darth Vader was like the mysterious Lord of the Sith that everybody had been after during the Clone Wars, the one that was Count Dooku's master. And so everybody just thought that Palpatine was like a puppet of the Sith, basically. They
thought that there was a third Sith party that was manipulating both Vader and the Emperor. They kind of thought that maybe the Emperor was a bit subservient to Vader.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They thought Vader was the Sith Lord and Palpatine was just like a lackey.
Yeah.
And they could not have been more wrong.
But I think that shows you how good of a fucking villain Palpatine is, that he made people think that he was a feeble old man. And to get back to this cartoon, that's great in this, because he plays himself up as a fucking doofus, and I love it. Like,
another thing the show does better than the '08 cartoon. I don't want to keep comparing the show to the '08 cartoon, but it's kind of inevitable. You should probably watch that at some point, Bill, and then we can talk about it on the show too.
Yeah, I will. I've seen quite a bit of it. I just have to sit down and watch it in chronological order.
Another thing that this show, though, does so much better than the '08 show is that Palpatine in the '08 show could not be any more obvious of a villain unless he had like a fucking mustache and was twirling it. Like, it is so obvious every time he's on screen that he's the bad guy.
I think that there's a bit of that in this too.
A little bit, but I think they do a better job of it.
Like when it's like, I think that young Master Skywalker should have his own command of the Space Legion. It's like, what? Shut your dumb fucking face and let us win this war for you so you can just fuck women and die. Like, that's all you need to do, you dumb piece of crap.
Yeah, but at least it's subtle like that, though. Like, and you gotta realize...
I don't think that's subtle.
You gotta realize we're looking at this, like, 14 years later, and everybody knows Palpatine's Sidious, and it's not even...
Everybody knew he was Sidious then, too. I knew.
Sure. But I could imagine a kid who was...
I probably hadn't even seen the original trilogy in its entirety at that point, and I knew that he was the Emperor.
But I could imagine a kid who was maybe less informed about Star Wars seeing it and maybe not knowing it first. Like, I'll tell you what,
yeah.
when I was a kid, when I first saw Phantom Menace, of course I was like 5.
If we're talking about those normie weirdos, then whatever, fine.
When I was a kid and I saw Phantom Menace for the first time, and again, I was probably like 5, but I remember distinctly not realizing that Palpatine was the bad guy from Return of the Jedi. I figured it out in Attack of the Clones when I was watching that in theaters. Like,
I think Phantom Menace makes perfect sense because he looks nothing like he did in Return of the Jedi. And once you get to Attack of the Clones, he does. So I think that at that point, it's like, oh, yeah. Like, that's when I figured it out.
Yeah.
Although I think, but at the same time, when you see him in the hood on the hologram talking to Maul or Dooku or whoever, it's very, very obvious that it's him.
Yeah, well, in hindsight, yeah. Again, I was like 5 at the time.
But I think that at the time, I was still like, that's him. He's the fucking... He's the guy behind the curtain.
Also, Ian McDermott, fantastic actor, carries himself completely differently when he's playing the two different characters. He's very menacing when he's Sidious. He's basically just playing his Return of the Jedi role again. And then when he's Palpatine, at least in Phantom Menace, he's more like lively and sort of bouncing around. And I missed it, or no, we got to go do the thing. And
he's really likable too, and that's the fucked up thing. He is like evil incarnate, but he's just so charming and like. You want to hang out with him and shit and just be like, yo, Sidious, let's just chill, man. And it's like, totally, I've just got this bowl ready to go. And I just turned up the BAFTA tank and I turned up the heat, man. It's going to be lit.
Your feeble lungs are no match for the power of the dank side.
Vader can't even be in the same room anymore. It just fucks up his ventilation system too bad. I can hear you from in here, Emperor, my master. It's so rude of you to think of me that way. It disconnects me from the Force. Oh, shut up, you pussy. Oh, I can't even just feel good anymore because he's just constantly giving me shit.
The only scene, in hindsight again, all these years later, where it's super obvious in Phantom Menace, is when they're in the Senate and he's telling the Queen to vote for no confidence in fucking Zod, and he's like coming up behind her and he's like, "Yes, you must vote for." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's Sidious." Like,
you will bow me before me and then your heirs. That's what he yelled at her.
But what was I saying?
We were just talking about whether or not Palpatine is an obvious villain in this. And I don't think for most of it he is. I like all the stuff towards the end where, like, Grievous fucking bursts through the window, and he just starts telling him, "How dare you burst into my private residence? I am the Supreme Chancellor of the galaxy."
Well, there's a great shot where, right before Grievous whips out his second pair of arms, where, like, Palpatine just sort of slinks back into the shadows, and at that point it's like, oh, now you're sinister Palpatine from Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, that was cool. I really liked that moment.
There's the transformation right there. But he's so much more obvious in the '08 cartoon, though, Bill. Like, oh my god, especially
I remember, yeah, I'm with you. I think that as time went on, they just cared less about people not knowing because they're like, everybody knows.
The '08 show came out post Revenge of the Sith, so everybody already knew anyway.
Yeah, so I think that they were like, who fucking cares anymore?
But I still wish they had tried to maintain.
Do you think the idea is that he doesn't care? I don't, because maybe he's like, I'm in, man. I'm already the Supreme Chancellor. It's done.
Palpatine doesn't stop caring until after Revenge of the Sith. Like, that's why he's so careless come Return of the Jedi. Because
he's a fuck up by Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, he's like, I've won already. You know, all I do is win.
I feel like if Revenge of the Sith, like Sidious would have seen Palpatine in Return of the Jedi, he would have been like, "You pussy fuck up. Like, what have you been doing?" Nothing.
Rebels years ago.
You just let fucking British people and big lasers do your work for you.
But
all Vader's been doing for like 5 years at that point is just fucking, or not 5 years, like ever since, like between the Battle of Yavin and the Battle of Endor, all Vader's doing is chasing Luke Skywalker. That's literally it.
Yeah.
So that's
well,
just,
I mean,
like,
for most of the movies,
he's just fuck ups, man.
For most of the movies, you know, Palpatine's just sitting in a chair while Vader goes off and takes care of business. And, like, the little bit of what we get to see of him actually being the Emperor, like in Tarkin, it's kind of hilarious, because it literally is just like being the head of a government. Like, he's in, like, board meetings and shit. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, he has to be in some capacity. But, I mean, it is implied by a lot of Star Wars material that he largely leaves the running of the Empire up to the British people who really care about having power. And he just likes to manipulate all of them because I'm the dark side.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Palpatine doesn't really give a shit about the Empire. The Empire is sort of the means to an end. All it is sort of there for is to run the galaxy and give him infinite resources to pursue his ultimate Sith goals. Once he finishes taking out the Jedi, he's pretty much content just to like sit in his little temple on Coruscant and like grow stronger in the dark side. Like he's like that's his whole thing.
Well,
the Empire
is his real world proxy for the dark side, where he's like, this is my version of the dark side that I can use with people who aren't Force sensitive.
It's almost like the Empire gets created as a byproduct of his plan to eradicate the Jedi, and then at that point he's like, oh, I got this government thing. Vader, can you run this?
Yeah, but Vader doesn't run it until much later, though. Like, early, like, for the first couple of years, all he's doing is fucking running around murdering people. Like, that's it. He's not doing much governmental decision-making. By the time you get to Empire... It isn't until Empire that you get that, where he's fucking running the fleet. And then when he's running the fleet, he's making some big decisions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's mostly up to the Moffs early on. Vader just sort of serves as a go-between between the Emperor and the Moffs.
The Senate is still a thing until A New Hope as well.
Well, the Senate is a thing, but it's mostly powerless at that point.
Yeah, but that's like a certain restraint.
Like, hey, Emperor, we don't like that thing you're doing, and then Palpatine's like, okay, I'm gonna keep doing it though.
Sure. Absolutely, but I think that's more of a restraint on using Vader because Vader is your your representation of the dark side. Like, I mean, if you see Vader, you have to know that the Empire is at least in legion with the dark side because he's representing the Sith very overtly. So clearly they're not necessarily scared about that if they feel the need to put you in a room with Vader. But I don't know. Vader's not in this, though. We haven't been doing a lot of specific talking about this show. And that's because it is so short, and also it is so action-oriented. Like, there's not a lot of dialogue. Like, every episode is just, it's a little bit of setup, and then it gets you into kind of an emotionally driven action moment. Like, there's that one where Mace Windu just fights... There's that one where Mace Windu just takes out all those droids and that kid just watches from afar. Is that supposed to be a young Han Solo? Because I was, like, convinced of that when I was watching it.
I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be a girl.
Oh. Well, never mind that. When I was watching it, though, I was like, is that supposed to be young Han Solo? He's got the hair.
Since the first episode is just sort of vignettes, I wanted to ask you, like, what are your favorite ones? Like, for me personally, the second episode where the ARC troopers are doing their thing, that's really cool. I like the Kit Fisto one. I really like the fight between Obi-Wan and Dirge, the Anakin versus Asajj Ventress fight, and then, of course, the General Grievous one at the end is just, like, fantastic.
The Grievous one is amazing. I really like the one between Anakin and the Dark Assassin, though. Like, that is some cool shit. Also on the same planet as the future fucking Rebel Alliance base.
Yeah, and it makes sense that she would take him there, because if you ever paid attention to the old EU, all those temples and shit on Yavin 4 were actually ancient Sith temples.
Oh, right. Okay. Didn't the Jedi move their base of operations to Yavin at some point post Return of the Jedi? Wasn't Luke like, this is a good idea? And then it wasn't a good idea?
I don't remember.
Me neither. I would have to say that that's definitely my favorite one, though, just because the battle between them is amazing. And it's really great to see Anakin up against somebody who really is just a fucking horrible, manipulative piece of shit, but still take it too far. These aren't sand people that are just like, they pose no threat to him that he could just kind of blast through no problem. This is a very competent warrior on his level, if not higher. Probably on the same level since they're both apprentices.
Yeah, well, another reason that I always watch the micro series in between episodes 2 and 3 when I marathon this shit is it creates this like much better arc for Anakin turning to the dark side, because if you just watch the movies, you basically have two moments that turn him over to the dark side, pre him actually choosing to go dark side. You have him killing the Sand People in episode 2 and him killing Count Dooku even though he knew he really shouldn't. It's like that's really all we're going to get, but if you watch the Clone Wars in between, you also have the Asajj Ventress fight where he gives into the dark side, and you have that like bone-chilling force choke at the end of season 2.
Yeah. There's a whole lot of that. There is one moment in the 2008 show that I looked up that I thought was really cool, where a dude, like a senator, tries to make a move on Padme, and he sees and he loses it. I thought that was probably one of the best dark side Anakin scenes I've ever seen. But in this,
there are also some really good ones in that show as well.
But I was like, wow, seeing this in Star Wars is great.
There's one episode in the 2008 show that I remember where he like straight up has a force vision of him of Darth Vader and shit, kind of like what happens at the end of this show, except he lost his memories by the end of that episode, so he didn't remember seeing all that.
See, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think this is drastically superior to that because this is way more subtle, and also it's contextualized within the story of that episode because it's all about what those aliens are going through too.
Yeah.
Because when he gets his cyborg hand cut off, the aliens use that as their like motivation to take off their cybernetic components to make themselves free.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more going on there. I would say that that's my favorite episode in season 2. Cutting back and forth between all that stuff where Anakin was on that quest to help that tribe of aliens who lost all the men in those genetic experiments by the Separatists. And the Battle of Coruscant, where Grievous and the Separatists were trying to capture Palpatine, and Yoda and Mace Windu were like single-handedly fighting just legions of droids. And there's that amazing moment where Yoda uses the Force to manipulate the two ships into each other and just crashes them into each other. That's awesome.
Yeah, and another very Rogue One scene.
But this had the Force involved. I think we'll get that in a Star Wars movie at some point as well. We'll get like the Force being used to take down starships and shit.
I really wonder if Gareth Edwards and the people behind Rogue One saw this show and what they think of it. I also really would love to like ask Dave Filoni that, the guy who's behind the new shows, because the 2008 show does borrow quite a bit from this show in terms of like character models. Like they pretty much look like 3D versions of what they looked like in this show.
Yes, they took the armor from this show, the Clone Wars era armor.
Yeah, I think a lot of people when they watch the '08 show were like, why are like the beards blocky? Like because it's like straight out of the '03 show.
And why do they have that weird armor?
Yeah, that they're not wearing like minutes later in Revenge of the Sith. That is kind of weird.
Yes, that is very strange.
I wish they were wearing that armor in Revenge of the Sith, actually. I think it would look better.
I agree.
They're supposed to be at war.
Yeah,
they've been at war since the last movie. They should be all fucked up looking, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, the idea is that they're dressing up the Jedi to be something that they've never been before, which is war generals.
Yeah.
So you definitely want to see that reflected in the wardrobe because, you know, that kind of has a symbolic meaning for the audience.
Well, the Jedi had been that before, but it had been like 1,000 years, so...
Yeah, I mean, that was like during like the fucking like Sith, like where the Sith were a whole race and everything, right?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with any of that.
There were several wars with the Sith. There was also wars with the Mandalorians. There was just all kinds of shit going on. The Jedi originally were like more warrior-esque, and then it came up to a point where they had seemingly vanquished all their enemies, and they just became sort of more of a peacekeeping force, and they were all Buddhist-y.
What do you think of the Jedi? What do you think?
Like,
Because that's one thing I like about this micro series over the 2008 show is that the Jedi seem to have more personality in this show. I feel like they all kind of have all different quirks and different wardrobe choices, and they all have different fighting styles, and they all lead their troops in different ways. They don't all feel like the same boring, like, fucking priests that they do in the movies. You know what I mean? Which is what I feel like the original intention always was, that they were kind of like... They were police officers. That they stuck to a code, but they all had different training, and they all came from different walks of life, so they all had their own distinct personality.
I especially really like Obi-Wan in this show. And the voice actor who does Obi-Wan in this show went on to continue playing him in the '08 show.
I wish the Anakin actor had, because he's more consistent with Hayden Christensen than the guy they got.
Yeah. And again, I think there was like an attempt to make Anakin more likable in the '08 show.
And less, which he is in this. Yeah. But again, it's more consistent.
Which I get why they would want to do that, but it just creates a problem when it's all supposed to be in canon with each other. The Star Wars universe is already weird enough as it is, with all the jumping back and forth in the timeline and all that shit. The least we could ask for is for things to be somewhat consistent, you know.
Obi-Wan going from a prime young man to a fucking graying, ailing old man in fucking A New Hope 20 years later.
In only 19 years. I am almost certain that it has something to do with the two sons on Tatooine. I think they need to explain that somewhere in the canon, because Luke looks way older than 19 in that movie too. And look what happened to Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru.
Yeah, it happened to the. Yeah, they got fucked up too. You must be right, but I just think it's funny that
Like Uncle Owen just like destroyed a Dunkin' Donuts at some point.
Yeah. Well, do you think that just raising like this fucking dickhead, the dickhead son of his lunatic cousin, would like just kind of got to him?
Maybe. And I mean, Luke had force powers, so maybe like he had some like baby accidents where like he like threw shit around the house.
There doesn't seem to be a lot of that in the Star Wars universe, though. Like that never really seems to be an issue, because a lot of the time it seems like until you find out you have the Force, you don't even know you have it. And, like until somebody goes, "You have the Force," you're like, "What?"
Well, if you look at Anakin in Phantom Menace, he already had sort of the Jedi ability to like sort of sense what was about to happen. You know, his reflexes were aided by the fact that he could sort of like see a little bit into the future at all times.
And Luke does have that too.
Because that's just an inherent Jedi trait. But yeah, you have to have training to like pick shit up usually.
Yeah, and Luke has that too. That seems to be the implication as to why he can, shoot womp rats with his T-16 or whatever.
Except Palpatine in the Plagueis book, he finds out that he has force powers because he gets really mad at his family one time because he like hates his dad, and they're like and like all of a sudden all his force powers come out and he basically massacres them all with the force. It's pretty awesome.
Wow. So let me ask you this question: Palpatine, when he started out, was he like, "I'm a real dickhead," or was he like, "I'm a cool dude. I'm just trying to make it in the world. I'm just trying to be all right"? Like, how did he start out? Like, did he start off as like, "I'm going to kill everyone and manipulate everyone"?
I think he already had a little bit of that quality inherent in him. He was sort of this just young guy on Naboo that was like going into politics and whatnot, and he had this sort of contentious relationship with his father, and he had a lot of deep-seated anger because of that. And then Plagueis comes along and sort of takes advantage of that and converts him into a Sith. Basically, he manipulates events and causes the event where Palpatine winds up murdering his family.
Does Palpatine have any inkling that he knows how to use the Force before he meets Plagueis?
If I'm remembering correctly, no.
Interesting. So there's never a moment where he's like, "I'm gonna be a Jedi."
I'm thinking maybe he had like a bit of like the intuition, but I don't think he realized like the depths of what he could do until he got mad that time and basically tore his dad's ship apart.
So, because I've always found it interesting that Palpatine doesn't really seem to have any like connection to the Jedi themselves. Like, he doesn't really seem to know how they work, or I don't know. He knows how they work. He doesn't seem to have ever been a part of it. Unlike Dooku and unlike Vader.
Well, that's the thing about the Star Wars universe, is that there's a ton of Force sensitives out there in the universe who just never become Jedi because either they aren't noticed by the Jedi Order, or I think in the case of Palpatine, his dad might have actually like kept the fact that he was like going like as make the order, so let that happen. But
You just cut out for like a solid 25 seconds, so I couldn't hear a word you were saying.
Basically what I was saying is that there's tons of Force-sensitive people out there in the galaxy, in the Star Wars galaxy, that just never interact with the Jedi because either they're not discovered at a young enough age, or like maybe their family keeps the fact that they're Force-sensitive a secret so that they can like keep them around. Because once you go into the Jedi Order, like there's no more family ties after that point, or there's not supposed to be anyway.
Well, also, they're supposed to take them super young to the point where they shouldn't remember their parents after a while, or just not even care.
Yeah, but I haven't read the Plagueis book in a while. I don't remember if Palpatine had any inklings of the fact that maybe he had the Force, but I definitely know that, like, the moment when he goes crazy and kills his family is the first time that I was like, whoa, like, look what I can do.
How old is he?
But to answer your question before, he's already got a little bit of like I think he already has that ability to manipulate people. That's just an inherent thing about him. He just didn't know that he was also had superpowers.
But is he like, "Oh, I'm trying to make the world a better place," or is he like, "I'm trying to make the world a better place for me"?
I think that comes after he becomes a Sith, really.
So before that, though, he's like, "I'm trying to make the world a better place."
Like, before he meets Plagueis, I don't think he's necessarily like the pure evil guy that he becomes later on. I think he's just sort of an angsty teenager who's got some inherent anger problems, but is also really good at manipulating people.
But what's his, like, why does he want to be a politician?
I think that was the family business. I think his dad was into politics as well.
But he doesn't have any particular love for it.
Uh, Not that I recall. Later on, after he becomes a Sith, of course, all that political training sort of becomes a means to an end.
Yeah, it becomes like a cover. Well, because he doesn't seem to like politics and fucking when he becomes emperor. He just seems to do it because, well, this is what I was gonna do. This is a means to an end, as you said earlier.
Well, when you read Plagueis and Tarkin, I really recommend, Bill, that you read both of those books.
Tarkin's next on my list. Right now, I'm reading another James Lucinio book, James Lucino. It's called Millennium Falcon. You ever read that?
I have not yet. No, is that good?
It's great so far. It's the entire history of the ship. I mean, it's not canon anymore, but
right,
it was.
Yeah.
And it covers it from its construction all the way up to. I think it's right at the end of where the EU ever got to with the original trilogy characters. I mean, Han and Leia are in their 70s when we get to the present day in that. It's post the Yuzhong Vong War, so and it's
after you read Tarkin, definitely read Plagueis, or do it the other way around. It doesn't really matter, because even though Plagueis technically isn't canon anymore, they do actually make kind of interesting companion pieces to one another.
No, I think it is, D. I think that book they're gonna largely not touch.
I mean, they might not just not address it, but it is
because they've said that everything around the prequels and everything before that they're largely going to leave alone. It's all the stuff that happens right after Revenge of the Sith and around the original trilogy that they need to clean out and change.
Well, as long as they don't do anything in the new trilogy to contradict Plagueis, I'm gonna keep it in my own headcanon. So fuck off, Disney. But anyway,
it doesn't look like that's who Snoke is.
But those two books actually kind of make an interesting companion piece to one another, Bill, because Plagueis' whole deal is he was obsessed with the idea of immortality, and he basically spends his entire life trying to achieve immortality, and failing, as far as we know. Then when you read Tarkin, you sort of get an insight into the Emperor's ultimate goals, and Palpatine has pretty much taken it one step far. Like, he doesn't just want to achieve immortality; he basically wants to become a god. Like, there's a moment in the book where it's from Palpatine's perspective, and he's sort of like talking about what his ultimate goals are. He basically wants to become so powerful in the Force that he can like shape reality itself.
Why? What is he gonna do with that, though?
Well, why wouldn't you want that?
I wouldn't. What would you do? Like, what would I genuinely do with that?
Whatever the fuck you want.
It would be fun for 5 minutes, and then I would be like, "Oh, great! Now I've totally ruined reality itself."
Fuck it, make a better one. Anyway.
But it'll never be genuine, though, and you'll always see. That's the problem with all that, like, kind of, I can bend the world to be whatever I want. But because you know that you bent it to be that way, you'll know that it never really got that way on its own, so it's not really genuine.
I guess, if you care about that.
It's a forced approximation. Forced.
Again, I guess. I guess, if you care about that sort of thing.
I do. I care about forced puns, too.
But anyway, that's basically Palpatine's like ultimate goal. So yeah, he
in other words, everybody. He's a dickhead.
As far as he's concerned, if they have to, they'll scrap the Empire and put something else up there. As long as he can continue studying the dark side.
I wonder if he would have been like, well, you know what? If you rebel dudes just want to take over the Empire for me while I just go off and smoke and think about the dark side, that'd be lit, yo. I mean, Vader, if you want to just spend some time with your kid, I totally understand, man.
Hey, Mon Mothma, want to become Emperor Mothma?
Yeah, you could totally just take over. I'll give you my robes. I don't clean them often, but I'll clean them more if you promise to take the job. This was a bad idea. Like, I feel like the Trump of the Star Wars universe. I didn't really expect this job to be this hard. I just want to smoke weed.
Imagine she does take the job, and then the next thing you know, you find Palpatine. He's like relaxing on a beach on Scarif. He's like in a lawn chair with like
Speedo on. He's just like, just giant blunt.
Sunglasses, Hawaiian shirt. This is
so good.
One of those reflective things that people hold to tan their face. but it's not working because he's all pale and fucked up.
Yeah, he does. He can't get any color. He uses like force lightning to light a fire and to light the blunts, obviously. Oh man, this would obviously have to be set before Rogue One because Scarif is pretty fucked up by the end of that.
I'm sure the other side of the planet's fine.
Just the other pole, yeah. Palpatine's just like, you go south of the border, it's really fucked on this planet. The neighborhood took a dive.
UI, sir. This is the Star Wars universe. Each planet can only have one ecosystem.
Coruscant doesn't, actually.
If it's beaches over there, it's beaches over here. Coruscant has that sort of artificially placed upon it because the entire planet is just a giant city.
Yeah, Coruscant's interesting like that, but it has micro like ecosystems in it that are artificially put in. Like there's a mountain area, there's like a fucking beach area and shit, but it's all like artificially installed.
I really like Coruscant, and I get the feeling we're never going to go back there again.
We're there briefly in Rogue One. There's that shot where there's a flashback briefly to where Galen picks up his daughter and is like, "What's wrong, Jin? I'll always protect you." That's on Coruscant.
Yeah, I forgot about that. You're right.
That's the
Still.
I think that's the night right after Palpatine was kidnapped. I think because that scene is in the book Catalyst.
They ever do a Boba Fett movie and or Netflix
who?
series?
I'm sorry. Who? What Star Wars character? Boba Fett?
Yeah.
Is this a Dragon Ball crossover that you're proposing?
What are you talking? Yeah, fucking. You know what I'm talking about. They ever do
Boba Fett? And I was like, yeah, Boba Fett, sure.
That's how I fucking pronounce it. Fuck off. Anyway.
You don't say Boba Fett like how it's pronounced in the movies, like how you can hear it.
No, fuck Boba.
Just say Boba Fett.
No.
All right, Dylan. What is the name of the Star Wars character who pilots Slave One?
Full disclosure, I do actually say Boba sometimes, but then other times I say Baba. It's just not consistent. But since you want me to say the one right now, I'm going to continually refer to him as Boba Fett. Anyway,
that's gonna drive me crazy. All right, go ahead. So what is it? Is it Django Fett? Is that what we can do now? Django?
Maybe it should be. There's no D at the beginning of his name.
You know what? You're right, D. You're absolutely right. It's Django Fett.
I swear, though, sometimes I feel like there are moments in the original trilogy where somebody has to like call him Baba by mistake because nobody ever pronounces anything consistently in the original trilogy.
No, that's true. Han.
I feel like I have a memory of somebody saying Baba instead of Boba. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway.
Princess Leia.
God. You may file when ready. Anyway, what was I talking about? Shit. Oh yeah, if they ever give him a fucking movie or a Netflix show or something, I want some him running around on Coruscant shenanigans. Give me that.
I'm about it. I'm totally about it.
It took us entirely too long to get to that point.
To get to what point exactly?
To the thing that I was trying to say. It was just a simple little throwaway line. You had to complicate things with your babas and your bobas and your tomatoes and tomatoes.
Well, it pissed me off, and I had to address it. No, it didn't piss me off that much. I was just like, why would you do that? Why are you like this? All right.
I've heard plenty of people refer to him that way.
Well, listen, we're an hour in.
Yeah,
I feel like I've kind of covered all the points I wanted to say, so if there's any more details you want to get into, go for it. But otherwise, that'll pretty much be it.
I don't know. Did we actually talk about the show? I feel like we might have kind of failed. We went on a bunch of tangents.
No, we definitely have. We've covered the voice acting, we've covered the animation, we've covered the story.
Oh, okay. By the way, the wonderful Corey Burton is Count Dooku in this series. We've talked about him before on the show.
He's great.
The fact that voice comes out of the same man who does Brainiac just amazes me. We wanted to talk about how cool Grievous is in this show.
Yes, proto Darth Vader.
So I don't know if you remember this, but when I was a young warthog,
sorry,
and this show was still coming out, like it was a big deal. Like, oh, they're premiering this new villain who's going to be in Revenge of the Sith. He's going to be in the last episode of this micro series, because I didn't know there was going to be a season 2 at that point. It's like, oh, this is like a big deal. They even did like I remember there was like a contest on TV where they had like 3 different Jedi, and you could vote which one you wanted to be in the episode, and it wound up being that werewolf-looking guy who's at the beginning.
Oh yeah, he's also in A New Hope. Well, a member of his species is.
Well, he's also in a scene in season 2 where Anakin saves him and Ayla Secura and somebody else from like this bubble thingy.
Yeah, those weird orange bubbles.
Yeah,
which we never see in the movies.
But anywho, it was this huge deal. Like, oh, they're premiering the new character, and he shows up in this episode, and he is like the most badass thing I think I had ever seen at that point.
Well, he is droid separatist Darth Vader. That was the point. And that's very effective.
They did such a fantastic job with him. And they did such a fantastic job with him in the second season. And then Revenge of the Sith happened.
He's in it for 2 minutes, and he's a fucking joke.
So I don't know about you. This was one of the hugest disappointments of 2005 for me, was fucking General Grievous in that movie. Because here they took this character who was amazing in the show, and they turned him into that because George Lucas couldn't leave well enough alone. Damn it.
Well, I mean, it's also, he's such a different character in this. Like he has such an initiative to him. He feels threatening. All we see him do in Revenge of the Sith is just hunch around and boss people around.
Yeah. Well, part of the thing is Tartakovsky and team didn't really know what he was going to be in the show, you know? They didn't know what his voice was going to be like, so they wound up giving him a very, like, intimidating voice, like, you know, you want to do with a villain.
He sounds like Vader. He's got that kind of, welcome, Jedi. We're going to have dinner.
You know who does the voice?
I have no idea. You think I need research?
It's fucking, what's his name? John DiMaggio? Is that how you pronounce his name?
Oh yeah, John DiMaggio. Sure, he was the Joker. He was the Joker in Under the Red Hood.
Yeah, well, he does the Grievous voice, and he does a fantastic job. But yeah, they didn't know what the voice was going to be, so they give him this voice that, interestingly enough, has like a British accent to it.
Yeah, totally different from the.
Yeah, and at least they explained it in season 2, where they had Mace Windu like force choke him and fuck up his voice.
He doesn't choke his throat. He fucking like constricts his entire fucking chest cavity and just like fucking breaks it.
Yeah,
that was amazing.
That was a great moment. But more so, the really disappointing thing was about him in this show or him in Revenge of the Sith is, in this show, he is a formidable fighter.
Yeah.
He's one of the most formidable fighters we ever see, like in Star Wars lore, ever in this show.
He really struggles to master battling people who can use the Force without the Force himself, and that's really interesting.
And then you get to the movie, and he's a joke.
Yeah.
Do you remember how easily Obi-Wan beat him in that movie?
He used a blaster and shot him in the chest.
Yeah. Like, it was...
uncivilized. I agree.
Ugh.
Yeah, no good.
And then, man, the Magna Guards, too, they were really good in this show. And then in the movie, they were also a joke. They also got taken out.
Well, I love in this when Dooku is training Grievous, and he's like, you're fighting too orthodox. I've seen this lightsaber style a million times. Do something unorthodox. You're not a Jedi. And then he starts fighting with his feet. Like, that's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
He's climbing the walls and shit like fucking Venom.
And I don't know if Tartakovsky and team probably didn't even know that he had that forearm trick in the first season when they did that episode. So when they found out, they like made great use of that in season 2.
Yes. Yeah, because initially he's fighting with his feet, and I'm like, wait, but he's got 4 arms. Like, but I still like that. I think that was a modification he made as he got more lightsabers.
Possibly.
But I really like the idea of a war where they don't have enough Force users on the dark side, so they're like, we're going to take some fucked up people, put them in droids, and then have them fight the Jedi.
Well, yeah. Well, you have Dooku create sort of several like powerful warriors to fight for him on his side of the aisle. You have General Grievous, of course. You have Ventress. You have Dirge, who I didn't even talk about in this review. Dirge is amazing in this show. That's one of like I don't even think they've reintroduced him into the new canon. He's one of my favorite things. He's one of my favorite things that are no longer canon.
I have never seen anything like that in Star Wars before, and that haunted me.
Yeah, he was also around in the comics a lot. I used to see toys of him when I was a kid, but they would always be toys of the way he looks in the comics, because he looks slightly different. Actually, he has a helmet. He has a helmet in the comics that is shaped more like Darth Vader's helmet. It's really interesting. But anyway, so yeah, like there's sort of a theme in the Clone Wars of like Count Dooku getting these like really powerful warriors to fight on his side because he doesn't have an army of Jedi, obviously. But the thing is, you look at Star Wars lore, and General Grievous is supposed to be this badass guy who kills a bunch of Jedi and takes their lightsabers. But then you look at him in the movie, and it just does not follow.
No, and again, I think their excuse is always injured at that point. But it's such a leap, though. Like, really? He goes from, like, this proficient force of nature to just total fuck-up in the span of, like, a day?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's fighting a whole team of Jedi in the first season. One of which being Ki-Adi-Mundi, who is a Jedi Council member and like supposed to be one of the better swordsmen that the Jedi Order has to offer. And sure, Grievous has the training of Count Dooku, and Count Dooku is like top tier, one of the best swordsmen that the Order ever had. So he sort of is able to keep pace with him in that way. But still, he goes from that to what he is in Revenge of the Sith, which, to be fair, in Revenge of the Sith, he's fighting Kenobi, who's also sort of top tier.
Yeah.
But still, it just, I don't know. It's rough. I don't like it.
I don't like it either. It's just...
It's not even a criticism of this show. It's a criticism of George Lucas. Why didn't you see what they had going on in that first season of the micro series and being like, oh, that's way cooler than an asthmatic who can't fight. I'll use that. Because how much better would the fight on Utapau been if Kenobi had actually had like a challenge?
That would have been cooler. I also feel like another problem with this show maybe, but this is a problem with all the prequel stuff. It's just too easy for the Jedi. It's so hard to feel like they're in actual danger because they can just fucking mop the floor with all of the fucking droids. There's rarely ever another Sith or a lightsaber user or anybody who can really give them a problem. And the actual war part of it, it's just like you're just blowing through paper.
Well, the important thing to note, though, is that it isn't that easy for all of the Jedi. A lot of the Jedi that we see in this show are like, again, like your top tier guys. Like Mace Windu in that one episode, yeah, he's tearing those droids up like nobody's business. But you got to realize that Mace Windu is like one of the most powerful Force users of the day. Like he's right up there with Master Yoda, really. Because you go to Yoda if you want the really wise guy who's also like probably the best swordsman. But in terms of like raw Force power, you go to Mace Windu.
Because every fucking frame of this cartoon, he's just pissed.
Yeah. Well, actually, in the old EU, I don't know if this is canon. This is probably not canon anymore. But in the old EU, there was this like intense explanation of how like Mace Windu managed to like balance the light and dark side, so he was able to actually use his anger in a fight without turning to the dark side or some shit like that.
Interesting. To rain vengeance upon thee.
Indeed.
But would you agree that maybe the action gets a little stale at some points because it's just Jedi just swatting through droids? I think this does a better job of it than the movies do at making it interesting and making it feel like there's some weight and some impact to it. Especially when Windu loses his fucking lightsaber and he's got to use the Force and just his fist. Like, that's fucking great.
Well, I think that is certainly an issue to some degree. I think the show is at its best when it's actually a Jedi going up against a boss per se. So you have Dirge, Ventress, Grievous. But the thing they do that I think really benefits them is that when it is just a Jedi versus a bunch of droids, they always find ways to make it interesting. So in the Mace Windu fight, it's like that super weapon. Yeah, in the Mace Windu fight, it's that super weapon that the droids have that like cause the seismic shifts. Like, that's really cool.
Yeah. Oh god, yeah, that's fucking awesome.
the Kit Fisto episode is probably the best example of this, because underwater lightsaber play, like that's amazing. Like that's the first time I had ever seen anything like that.
That was cool. I also like the space jump, where they did the space jump onto the Separatist ship and they hijacked it.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a lot of really cool action in this. I feel like maybe sometimes it goes on for too long and there was too much of it where I was like, I'm watching a lot of stuff blow up and it's cool. I just don't know why I should care.
Oh, Star Wars jousting in the first season between Dirge and his IG-88 droids and Obi-Wan and his clones.
That was cool. Oh, yeah, he's on the motorcycle thing, yeah. He's a very different character than anything we've ever seen in Star Wars before. He's almost like a fucking Transformers character. He reminds me of like Death's Head.
For a long time, he was like my favorite bounty hunter. He's from this race that probably isn't even canon anymore. I forget what they're called, but like they're basically functionally immortal. Like you have to destroy them on a cellular level because they just sort of regenerate and shit. And you see some of that in the show.
Yeah, he reminded me a lot of like Cuvier from Batman Beyond, where he just kept mutating.
Yeah, kind of.
But yeah, I thought that every episode in this was fun and entertaining and good. I just thought some of the action was better than others and more impactful. And I thought that some episodes did a better job of making this work well with the movies and fit into the overall universe better.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I do definitely have to say that this is something you just have to see. You know, you can criticize us all you want for fucking not reviewing all the details that maybe we could have. But I think that it's also something to say for the show of, it's so good that that all it makes you want to say is, just go watch it for yourself. You know, there's literally no downside. It's short. There's so much to take in that's awesome. You know, you can break it up a little bit. It's not, you don't have to watch it all in one go, but you can, and it's not that much of a commitment, and it's all good. So, give it a go for yourselves, kids, if you haven't. It doesn't matter if it's canon or not. It's good quality Star Wars stuff.
If you're one of these young people who
one of those young people, right?
Yeah, who maybe grew up post this show and all you've ever seen is the '08 series. Watch this, man. I don't know if the DVDs are still out there available. Maybe you could find them on Amazon, but I'm pretty sure it's all online.
You will find it. Trust us. We certainly did.
Go watch it. Like, well, I have the DVDs from back in the day, so I was set. But I mean, it's basically 2 hours of your life, and it's really good Star Wars material, and I think it bridges the gap between episodes 2 and 3 rather well.
If you like Rogue One, you will like this show.
I would say so. Especially since you actually, I would say you maybe care about the characters in the show a little bit better than Rogue One because you know them.
Yeah, I would say so. It's kind of a good mix of like Force Awakens and Rogue One, and the prequels.
How did you feel about Yoda in this show?
Awesome, loved him.
Everybody shits their pants in anger whenever he like does anything actiony in the movies, but I think they do it rather well in this show.
He uses the Force almost entirely when in combat in this, so that's more consistent with Empire Strikes Back than the movies are.
Yeah, well, it's a combination of the Force and his lightsaber, but he's not just flipping around, you know.
But everything I remember was Force stuff. I don't remember very much of him using his lightsaber, except when he fucking knights Anakin and he cuts off his dumb braid.
Well, mostly he uses his lightsaber just for deflecting blaster bolts.
Yeah, which I think you can do with the Force too, but it's harder, I guess.
Well, yeah, there's a skill called I forget what it's called, but basically you can absorb.
Oh my god,
energy.
It has its own name. Great.
Yeah, everything does. There's a light, but there's a Jedi power. Shit, what's it called? Anyway, where you can like absorb energy into your body. Yoda actually knows that move. He's used it. He used it on Dooku's Force Lightning and a little bit with Sidious's Force Lightning in Episode 3. Although he couldn't keep it up because Sidious's Force Lightning was far more potent.
He couldn't keep it up.
But Yoda knows that ability. Darth Vader can do it too. That's why he was able to stop Han Solo's blaster bolt with his hand.
Oh right. Yeah, I always wonder why Vader could do that. He's just got normal robot hands. Like that blaster bolt should have blown them apart.
Yeah, it's a force power. You like basically absorb energy into your body and then disperse it.
I love the moment in this where I keep remembering details and wanting to mention them. I love the moment where Anakin has to get the crystal out of that reactor at the end, and he puts his cyborg hand in, and it just gets crushed by the laser. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, there's even examples in the old EU of characters who are so good at that ability that they can actually like catch a lightsaber.
That wow. Oh, I think Jedi
it's
Master,
not always
I think Jedi Master Sabayoth does that in the Thrawn trilogy. At one point, like, he grabs a lightsaber, and it's like, what? How's that a thing?
Yeah, it's not always practical in battle because I think it takes a little bit of focus to do. Like when you see Yoda do it, like in the movies, he's like clearly like focusing all his might, which is why he probably just resorts to using his lightsaber most of the time.
Yeah, because like Luke does that, and he's like, oh my god, I can't use my lightsaber, and then he ends up using the lightsaber to kill him. So he's like, oh, I guess it was just because he wasn't concentrating.
Yeah. It's cool to show off with every now and then, or for Force Lightning, but it's not always practical. Actually, if you want to stop Force Lightning, you're better off just trying to catch it with your lightsaber, like Mace Windu did. But
Well, all right.
But anyway, before we end the show, I do actually have a little bit of trivia about this series.
Oh, okay. Educate us.
Friend of the show, Sean Barry. You know him, Bill.
I do.
He was aware of the fact that we were covering this series tonight, and he's just as big of a fan of this show as I am. But he's apparently done some more digging into the behind the scenes type stuff, and he sent me some fun facts that I could discuss. So I'm just going to mention a few of these here. Anthony Daniels, C-3PO, is the only actor from the films who reprises his role in the 2003 series.
Yeah, which is kind of always the case, sadly.
Yeah. I gotta tell you, though, a lot of the other people do really good impressions. Like, the guy who does Obi-Wan is pretty close. The Corey Burton's Christopher Lee impression is pretty spot on. The guy who does Mace Windu is pretty good.
Yoda's perfect.
They got good voices for all that. Another bit of trivia here. Because it was being simultaneously broadcast as a television series and a web series, technically Clone Wars is the first Emmy-winning web series.
Huh.
So, go Clone Wars. The other one, he also told me about the General Grievous thing where he was voiced by John DiMaggio. I already mentioned that. There were some other things that he sent me here in the messenger, but I'm not going to dig through it all. The chick who does the voice of Asajj Ventress was Mandy from Billy and Mandy. So if you're like me and you always thought that voice
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. The guy who voiced Yoda in this show voiced the professor in Powerpuff Girls. That's interesting.
That also makes a lot of sense. Yoda's very sassy in this show, and I like that because that's more in line with The Empire Strikes Back. Like, I like when all the Jedi are debating about whether or not Anakin should be made a knight, and then Yoda's like, why don't you all shut your fucking dumb faces and realize we're in the middle of a fucking war?
Indeed.
And we need to fucking step up and knight this fool. And then there's that awesome scene where they take him into the dark room, and they illuminate it all with their lightsabers, and then they chop off that dumb braid, and he's made a knight. And, like, that's a great scene.
Well, Yoda has the luxury of, even though there's no, like, Lord of the Jedi like there is with the Sith, Yoda is still in this position where, like, nobody's going to go against what he says. You know, he's, like, the oldest and the wisest there. So he just basically ends the conversation, a knight he will be. And everybody else is like, all right, get to the knight.
I love that. Well, all right, D, we're crazy far in. So thank you to Sean Barry for those facts. We appreciate it. And if you ever want to, hit us up on Facebook or hit us up on the SOS Network homepage or in the YouTube comments and give us some ideas or something you want us to mention on the show or whatever, just go ahead and throw it down there. And if we see something that we like, we will do it. So go ahead and do that. You can hit me up on Twitter at Bill_Worster too for suggestions. You can hashtag DFOS or whatever. But all right, I think that'll do it. So again, give the Clone Wars a watch if you feel so inclined. You can find it in all the places we mentioned before. Next time, we don't have anything concretely planned, but we've had some ideas bubbling. We had a Wouldn't It Be Interesting If that we were talking about doing.
Right.
Do you want to do that next week? Maybe we should sit on that, or
we might want to sit on it for a while because you're gonna have to remind me after we're done recording what that was. We'll
sit on that one then. So
we have the one that we're definitely sitting on because it's going to take a lot of preparation, and then there was another one that you came up with, and I remember liking the idea, but I don't remember what it is now. So
right. Okay, we'll tell you what.
Is there anything else we've been meaning to review?
Well, we were going to do Reliquary.
But that's going to take a while because I have to actually listen to that.
Yes, that is true. We could get caught up on Super next week. We could do the hit arc, and we could do the Barry Conn Great Sandman movie arc. Do you want to do that?
That's true because the next big arc of Super is starting early February, but it probably would be best for us to cover this filler stuff in a separate video because it is sort of mini arcs unto itself.
All right, so we'll do that next week then. So that's 4 episodes or so, 4 or 5 episodes.
Yeah. What was the last episode we talked about? Did we talk about the baseball episode?
Yes. No, we didn't. That was the next one. So we'll cover that one too.
Okay, so we'll talk about the baseball episode, the 2 hit episodes, and the 2 Gohan episodes.
Yeah. Sounds good, man. Awesome. So that's next week with the DB Super filler arc stuff. And maybe at the beginning we'll mention our thoughts on the Funimation dub so far. I've seen both episodes so far, and I've got things to say, so maybe we could mention that at the beginning next week as well.
Can't wait to see the episode 5 and see if they fix that animation.
Yeah. So far, so good, though. It looks really impressive. But we can talk about that next time. So, until next time, everyone...
I'm nervous, though, because the first 2 episodes always looked good. It was after that things went south.
I think it looks better than I remember the Japanese version looking, though. Maybe that's just because it's on HGTV as opposed to my laptop. I don't know.
That is possible.
So let's wrap up this monkey show then, shall we? Until next time, everyone, I'm Bill Worster, a.k.a. Zazubar.
I'm SuperDam64.
And you see nothing, because it's a podcast, kids. Them Germans, they be fucked up.